So what's going to happen tonight, different from last time, we're going to have a conversation with Colleen and Nancy, and they're just going to go back and forth and begin to discuss what we're talking about from the subjects and regarding first, we're going to be going into healing hearts. And Nancy and Colleen, I'm just going to let you all talk about this.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry,
Good
Nancy, I
evening.
just jumped right in there.
Good evening. It's a great time to jump in.
We're really excited to see everybody here tonight, and thank you very much for coming. We had a really good second session about a month ago, and so it's really a great opportunity to follow up on it and just dig a bit deeper into the topics that are near and dear to our hearts. Nancy, do you?
Absolutely. I'm really grateful to be here. This is an important topic. This is an important mission. Moose's March is an important mission. The Association for Pet Loss and Bereavement extends itself so widely to support individuals coping and growing through grief. And I'm really fortunate to be part of this community and to share your talents, to learn from everyone, and hopefully provide some support to people coping and living through pet grief. Healing hearts, isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
The goal is our hearts are broken when our pets pass.
Right.
And helping that healing is what we're doing. This is why we're here.
Yeah. And everybody who has a pet has to do the heavy lifting when their animal dies. But the important thing to know is that there are people and there are resources around to help you. You do not have to face that that grief and the jagged edge of the knife that goes into your heart. When Tricia was talking about her dog Moose, and him having only a couple of weeks to live, I went through the same thing with my heart dog Lily Clementine. She got hemangiosarcoma cancer and died very quickly after the diagnosis. So we didn't have a lot of time together. But I think knowing what I know of pet loss grief support, I had to take my own advice that I give a lot of times. Right. And Nancy, I don't know about you, but when you experience the death of a pet, you face the same thing everybody else goes through. You don't get a pass.
You don't get a pass because you know information, or you train, or you teach. You don't get a pass. But what is really important is to know that there are people for you. Even providers who lose a pet go through the same reactions, the same stages. We don't go through not everyone goes through the same stages, but we all grieve. And so I think that piece is really important. None of us gets out of this relationship and love without grieving. And I think what's really important is to know I know it's hard to think about that when we're loving our beautiful pet, but short of having a cockatiel or a tortoise, most likely our pets will not outlive us. And so just knowing that piece gives you the opportunity to cherish every moment you can.
Yeah. Our founder, Dr. Wallace Seif, was a private practice psychologist, and we are now in our 25th year. I'm so proud of that. We have a really long track record in helping people. And one of the things that he did when he was going through the exact same thing that we all go through, when he lost, when his Dachshund died, he looked around for a book that would help him cope with the loss of his dog, and there wasn't anything. So he decided to write one. We went through this a bit in the last session we had, but the stages of grief that we at the APLB follow and that we teach to new pet loss grief specialists are from Dr. Sipes' model. And just knowing about the stages that you're going to go through is very empowering, and it's very validating of your feelings. You can feel as if you're abnormal for grieving and for crying uncontrollably one minute, and then the next minute kind of be bouncing around and happy. And then all of a sudden, smack, you're right back into the throes of things. So maybe we'll just walk through what the stages of grief are really quickly so
That'd be
that
so helpful.
you all will know what they are. And when you're trying to support other people, you're going to be cognizant of them,
Yep.
and you'll probably be able to identify where they're at
That's
and
right.
be able to help them through it. So Nancy, is that okay if I just,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and if you have a different model, let's bring it up. But the first stage and the last stage, the fifth stage, are always in those two positions, first and last. Stages 2, 3, and 4, you can miss one completely. You can bounce back and forth between 2, 3, and 4. And it almost feels like you're on an emotional roller coaster. It's wicked.
It
It's-
is.
But if you know what to expect, it's like a roadmap, and it'll help get you through. So the first stage is shock, and it's often accompanied by disbelief. I can't believe, my dog is dead. I can't believe it.
What has happened?
What is going on? And sometimes it can go to another stage, which is denial.
Hmm.
And people just, they can't face the trauma, and so they just didn't happen. It doesn't last that long. The next stage is anger.
Yeah.
Distant,
Someone's got to pay for this. It's unfair. Someone has to be accountable. This is so unfair.
yeah. And sometimes it can be followed or in conjunction with distancing and alienation. So you might not want to talk to anybody. Nancy and I were talking about this earlier tonight. Sometimes you just want a cocoon and you don't want to show your grief.
Right? You don't want anyone to say anything to you. Everyone knows. Usually your friends and family and colleagues
Yeah.
have an idea, but you can't speak about it. You need to be very direct. And just as a friend or an ally to supporting people with grief, if you see someone who just is not interested in talking, have boundaries,
Yeah.
give them the space.
Yeah. The next stage is, I think it's the trickiest stage of all, and that is guilt. And guilt can come with so many different layers to it, complex. It can trigger other buried memories of other losses. There are two types of of guilt, merited and unmerited. And a merited example would be something like, you let your cat out, it goes to sleep under your car, you go grocery shopping.
Tragic accident.
It is an accident. Strictly speaking, it's merited, but holy smokes, you have to have self-forgiveness. And
Self-compassion.
that is the tough one for somebody to get through. Unmerited is when you get the diagnosis, the cancer diagnosis, and there's nothing you can do. You have done everything that you can for that animal. The animal dies. But nevertheless, everybody goes through guilt.
And Colleen, I agree with you. I think that in those two types of grief or two types of guilt, the connector to both is everyone shoulds on themselves. I should have known. I should have checked. I should have. People end up shooting on themselves
Yeah.
because the guilt,
Wow.
you feel like the guilt ends up somehow, you'll find a soothing element if I just keep shoulding. I should have this, I should have that.
And sometimes people can get stuck in that stage. And that's when we have to get down to the nuts and bolts and get to the coping strategies to help that client dig themselves out.
And one coping strategy that's really great to talk about here is prevention and postvention. And this is where what my work is, when there's so much complex guilt, both merited and unmerited, and there's a lot of shoulding, I say, are you talking about a time when they were here, which is prevention? There's always something else to do, or postvention, where they're at peace and not in pain, and just asking themselves, is doing this to myself, shoulding on myself now, changing anything?
Nope.
And that brings in self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone did their best. The team, the doctor, the oncologist, you, everyone. And so if they're still here, I could see why people are like, I should get that other test. I should consult. But if it's done, if it's over, the shoulding does not support you. It doesn't help you to connect with memory, ends up hurting you and keeping you away from really honoring and accessing memories.
Love that, Nancy. Shoulding, I love it. That's a great way to talk about it. I think too, sometimes people think that if they stop feeling guilty, they don't have that connection to their animal any longer.
That's right.
And so they want to hold on to it. And it's almost like a death grip. I've got to feel guilty, because if I don't, then I'm not going to have loved my animal. No,
That's right.
no. So Nancy, you described it really, I love that.
I think our brains, when it's in shock, hangs on to the last 48, 72 hours. And we think that was the relationship. So I gotta keep it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of us have had our pets for a long time, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 10 years. Their unwellness generally lasts a few days, 2 weeks, because our pets don't share their unwellness with us until they're in pain.
Yeah.
And that's what we remember versus the 4,000 days of love, the 30 days of love versus the 2 days of unwellness. Not sick, because some animals are sick and they recover. I'm talking unwell.
The fourth stage is depression. And I don't mean clinical depression, I mean more situational and low mood. So you're going to be feeling pretty dragged out. So somebody can miss one of those three stages, the anger, the guilt, and the depression, or they bounce back and forth until they reach resolution. And resolution is when you can think of your animal companion and you don't get that knife in your heart and want to just break into tears. That pain is never going to completely go away.
That's right.
How you described it the last time is really lovely. So I hope you.
So the resolution to me is that stage where you can have access to your love account. Our pets leave us a love account. Every day, every moment they're in our life, they deposit love. Like a 401k that we're saving for. We don't have access to it until they're not with us. And once we reach resolution, we can then make room for accessing this love account, because it's that moment when we start to learn it's not living without them that I can't do. I'm learning to live with their memory, which is the hardest thing to do. I want to step back just a little, Colleen, on what you talked about depression, because I'm a clinical psychologist. I can detect that. And oftentimes the loss of a pet resurrects or unearths depression because our pets give us so much love, unconditional love, soothing companionship, witnessing, that it can soothe an unmanaged depression or unprocessed depression. And sometimes when our pets pass, it just is an open wound. And so that has happened. And since I'm a psychologist, I can diagnose that. Um, Oftentimes it's sadness. Oftentimes it's grief. Sometimes they'll ask me, am I depressed? I said, well, I'm assessing you as grief. I'm not hearing depression. They look alike. They can feel alike. But oftentimes it's sadness, which is different from depression.
And that brings up something that I really like to make a distinction between what I do as a pet loss grief specialist and what Nancy does. I am a pet loss grief specialist. I am not a certified mental health provider. Pet loss is probably one of the best ways. Let me put it another way. You can help somebody through the loss of their pet, even if you're not a mental health
That's
counselor.
right. That's right.
Because it is a very, normally, it's a very short-term period of grief. And given what skills I have in my basket, I can help somebody through it into maybe 3 sessions, mostly 2 sessions, by using reframing techniques and giving them specific coping strategies.
That's right.
If I identify that the pain they're feeling and the grief that they're feeling is almost like the tip of the iceberg, I have a referral list of mental health counselors that
That's right.
I refer on to, and they all have pet loss grief experience.
Well, Colleen, I think that really, segues really well. And why? I think it's fantastic. There are paraprofessionals and lay persons who are trained and have competencies, because I think that's so important, training and competency in pet grief. And I think it also was born out of disenfranchisedness. Pet grief was disenfranchised for so long. It wasn't seen as a legitimate grief, even by the American Psychological Association. It is only recently that it has elevated pet grief within the grief spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I know that before the therapist came in, there was the community, friends, family, people wanting to help others grieve and support them. So you're 100% correct.
There are so many countries right now outside of USA, Canada, Australia, and the UK. We did a continuing education seminar series for psychologists, psychiatrists, and behavioral veterinarians in Italy. They have nothing.
That's right.
Nada, nothing. And so they were thrilled to see the model that we did for the APLB and how we moved over the last 24 years to help them.
Yep.
People in India, the same thing.
That's right. That's right.
United Emirates. So we are, even though it is still somewhat disenfranchised, it's becoming more mainstream.
And we need more. And
So
Moose's March and a variety of other things highlight that.
Yeah.
So Colleen, was there one more of the stages that people go through? Because I think you mentioned 4 of those, and we wanted to move on to honoring the bond. I also want to encourage everyone who is part of this right now. We're going to be actually opening this up and unmuting your mics, or the questions that will be selected for Q&A. So please go ahead and type in your questions or your comments, and we're going to call upon you if you want to talk. We are going to do that tonight. But Colleen, talk about I believe there was the 5th stage, and then we want to move on to honoring the bond and those things to memorialize.
I would add, Colleen, I would add acceptance.
We call it resolution.
Right.
Acceptance.
Acceptance, resolution, right.
That's the final stage. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
We decided not to go with closure. Because
Right, because that's a legal
like,
term. It's not an emotional
yeah,
term.
it's ugh.
Closures are for real estate deals,
Yeah.
not for the heart.
Closure.
So let's talk about honoring the bond
Yeah.
and what are some ways that uh, pet parents can honor, celebrate, remember, and what happens with that? What are some things?
You know, one of the things I think about when I talk about honoring the bond is first, you have to honor yourself that you had this amazing bond.
Mhm.
This bond happened because you were part of this relationship. You received a lot and you gave a lot of your time, your talent, your resources, and your devotion. So part of honoring the bond is remembering that part of yourself. I
Mhm.
did within my means and my resources, because not everyone has the same resources and means, but whatever I had, I did all I could.
Mhm.
And that piece is the first step. Because honoring the bond, we go back to the shoulding. Why didn't I do this? So in my experience, first honoring, I was part of this bond. This bond was there for me. I helped create it. And from there, the highway is open. There's so many wonderful ways to honor what you had by just acknowledging. First,
Mhm.
acknowledging I was witnessed. My pet helped me through grad school. My pet helped me through my divorce. My pet helped me through the death of my parents, transitioning to another country, the loss of my abilities. Honoring that I was witnessed in this way.
Mhm.
That piece helps honor the bond.
Mhm. And there are some physical things that
Mhm.
you can do to honor the bond. And I guess what I'm talking about is some people will commission small paintings. I did 3 small paintings with and mixed in the cremains of my animals.
Mhm.
And they're beautiful reminders of what they meant to me. There's photo albums, scrapbooking, shadow boxes. Oh,
Mhm.
shadow boxes are very cool. You can put in, their collar, their favorite toy, some of their cremains, if you like. Excuse me, different toys. You can plant a tree. You can put up a park bench. You can make a donation in their honor
Right.
to.
You can write a letter. Write a letter to your pet.
Yeah.
Tell them how much they meant to you. Share with them what you're grieving. I miss your every day. I miss making dinner for you. I miss walking. I miss our park friends. And write a letter from your pet. What would your pet say about you? You got up every morning, rain or shine, and walked me 3 times a day. You invested in treats. You took me to professional barking school. You took care of it mattered to you who watched me. You didn't mean to leave me at home, but as soon as you got here, you took me in your arms and you took me for a walk. These are all what keeping your memory present is
Mhm.
also a way to honor the bond. Go
Mhm.
for the walk and remember them.
Mhm. One of the ways that some of the clients that I've dealt with, they have said that what was very special for them was writing special memories that they shared with their pet on small yellow stickies. And some of the yellow stickies you can get in heart shaped. And then you put them in a glass vase and you line the outside of the vase with pictures of them. And when you're feeling really sad and you really miss them, you go over to that jar and you select out one or even a couple and you go sit down somewhere, center yourself, get yourself nice and calm, and open them up and read them.
That's right. That's a wonderful way.
Mm,
It's a
That's
wonderful way.
beautiful.
I think people, when you're thinking of honoring your bond, you feel like you have to withhold things from yourself. And it also, again, grief is not linear. It goes in every direction. So you might have had the vacation plans, but now you don't feel like you want to go. Take them with you in your memory. Take a picture, take their collar, do something in their honor.
Mhm.
Just continue to grow and take them with you is one of the best ways to honor the bond. Because every time you bring them with you in memory, you strengthen your bond.
Nancy, you were mentioning something during our pre-session last week that when you're on vacation, you actually go and you tell us about that. You're
Yeah,
with
that's
animals.
And that's
Yeah,
under different types of honoring. There,
yeah.
you can adopt a new pet as a way to honor the love that you shared because you give more love. Remember, your pet showed you how to love to such a profound degree that didn't stop. Your abilities didn't stop because they're not here. You wish they were here so you could give it to them, but your ability to love at that level didn't stop. So when one is ready, you can adopt a new pet because you have a lot of love to share. If you're not ready to adopt, considering fostering. There's the week, I know Chicago Paws, when they're overrun, they call it, sleepovers. Just take them for 2 days, get them out of the shelter, like give them an experience, just a sleepover.
Mm.
And I started travel fostering. I go on vacation and I connect with pet friendly communities.
I love it.
And I fostered a cat. It was a feral cat. And I connected with the feral cat community and they knew who he was. It's like, yep, he's a feral cat. He's been neutered. I was going to have him neutered. And they're like, nope, we've got him, but you can donate the resources. I did. And it reminded me so much of just, it was such a wonderful experience to have a routine. I'm feeding you, I'm making sure you're okay. It reminded me of my beautiful pet, my cat that I lost some time ago. And it brought another element. And I connected with pet community members. The place where we ordered pizza from, they part of their proceeds goes to pet shelters in that community. This is a tiny fishing village I was in. I had no idea.
Love it.
So many pet people, pet loving and helpful they were. And so this vacation was enriched by the wonderful people I met, travel fostering. I remember what it was like to select different cat foods. I had forgotten that because I didn't have another cat. It was another animal I had. It's like, oh yeah, he doesn't seem to like the tuna. I think I'll get the chicken. I mean, I just missed these activities.
Yeah, I
And I
love that.
think when you go, and if you're a digital nomad, sometimes it can be lonely. You're like really happy to be at a beach, but you miss the companionship, you miss the witnessing. Or if you're going for just 2 weeks, sometimes just spending some of your time among shelter animals or people who love pets the way you do is healing, enriching, and honors a bond of love that you have shared and continue to share with pets.
Wonderful. The next thing that we're gonna go into before we open it up to Q&A, and this has happened to me personally, and Colleen's familiar with this a little, and I think if Jacqueline Lemieux Bacor is on the online with us. I have had about 5 friends who have lost their pets over the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
And supporting others through pet loss and how to be there for grieving pet parents. How do you say, what do you say? Are you saying the wrong thing? And I've said the wrong thing. And I just listen, talk to us about maybe guidance for your friends, for others, and what that, yeah, I would love to chat that through.
You talked, I think, Trisha, you're talking to us about how you have lost and how sometimes we say the wrong thing, even when we've had the same experience.
Yeah.
I think that's very genuine and very real, and it's happened to us all. So I want to thank you for starting out with that because it's true. Even if we've lost a pet and we've had profound loss, sometimes we might not say the right thing.
Right.
Thank
And then you feel even worse because you're not saying the right thing.
And you're like, how did I not know? How did I end up saying that when I myself have
Yeah.
experienced loss?
Yeah, yeah.
really listening to what the person is saying. And, we all do it. We anticipate ahead what somebody's going to say. But if you can center yourself and be very, like, be an active listener and let them just talk and hear what they have to say, and say that you understand, that you can't understand all the nuances of their pain. You've been through it, and you know how tough it is and how tough it's going to be, and you'll be there for them in whatever capacity they
Yeah.
need you.
And if you're someone who has a hard time tolerating emotion, if it's too painful to see a friend sobbing, if it's too painful to see your family fall apart with grief, you know that about yourself, then you know, I'm going to help in another way. Everyone needs grocery shopping. Everyone needs their lawn mowed. Someone needs their kids taken to school or picked up. Those are other tangible ways that you can support. If your if your skill set is not, I cannot tolerate crying or seeing people in pain. There are a lot of us who, and so we end up ignoring because we don't know what else to do, but there's so much you can do. You can order DoorDash for them. You can make lasagna.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
You have
there's
to know yourself. You have to, if you cannot, even if you've gone through your own grief, if it's difficult to witness someone in profound pet grief, there are other ways to help.
And if that person is very, if they don't like showing their emotion a lot, there are chat rooms that they can go to. You can write out a list of resources and just say, here, you know what, I was thinking about you. Here's some resources you might want to take advantage of. This chat room is completely anonymous. They've been around for a very long time. The chat hosts are so kind, and it's a safe place. You can go there. You don't have, nobody's going to see you crying, but you'll have support from other people who are going through a similar
Yes,
experience.
absolutely. I've had spouses call and say, I cannot tolerate seeing my spouse in so much emotional pain. I don't know what to do. I feel, and I said, I'm glad you reached out. This is how you want to approach it. Send a list. Here are a bunch of resources in your community, virtual, in person, online, chat. If they're not ready to see someone, here are steps that you can take.
Or books. There's
Books.
fantastic books out there. If they are people who like to read, if they like to journal, there's so many beautiful journals out there right now, and a lot of them
Absolutely.
center on pet loss
And resiliency.
and they're beautiful gifts, and they come from the heart.
Yeah. And one of the most things I say is, if you do nothing else, don't minimize feelings.
Ah,
If you do nothing else, don't minimize feelings. That's the only thing. Don't say, well, he was old, or
He's in a better place.
he's in a better place. Don't minimize feelings.
Yeah.
Just say, sorry to hear it.
Mm.
I'm hearing you.
Nancy, have you ever heard some of my clients, they come to me very, like, a long period of time after the death, and they are annoyed because their closest friends have moved on, and they're still suffering, and they just want somebody to ask them.
yeah.
I know it's tough. I know you're still grieving. Just to acknowledge them. that they're
Yeah.
going through it is really helpful.
I think what you're tapping into is really the umbrella of grief. When anyone else loses, the world does go on. It stops for us. Our world
But-
has stopped.
But it's not supposed to go on for others, though.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah.
I
Right?
know.
Right.
You're supposed to stay
Because
with
if our world has stopped, everyone's world should stop.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And that's the pain. And sometimes we have to do self-advocacy. Hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. I just want to let you know it's still hard.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's all you need to say, or send a text. Hey, we haven't chatted in a while. It's still hard. Or
Mhm.
I'm still grieving. Or I need an ear.
Mhm. I'm going to jump in here really quickly, and I'm going to say something that happened today, actually, and kind of, set the, I guess, maybe perhaps knock me off my game a little bit. I was sending out emails, and you all probably received an email from us about this, and I had gone to our list of the past webinars and the people that had been part of our mailing list, and included was one of these of my friends who had just lost her dog about 2 weeks ago in an accident, and I included her in the mailing and did not realize that. And she called me after she received it and voiced and said that really hurt my feelings, and didn't even realize it when I sent that. I was just sending out emails, and yeah, and I felt, how your heart rips out all over again,
Right.
and you feel like so I understand, and it's really difficult from the supporting standpoint, especially you've gone through that pain. And then you know what they're going through, but you don't know what they're going through, and then you make a major mistake such as that, and that now the guilt from your own, so yes, I get it.
Your intention was love.
Yes.
Yeah, it's self-loathing right now, but it's okay.
I know.
Self-forgiveness.
Self-compassion.
Yeah, I know. Guys, we want to get to some Q&As here.
Sure.
So Miss Jessica is going to assist here. And so I think you all can unmute your mics. I believe that you can. If you can, we're going to assist with you, but we'd like to hear from you and hear some questions and answers, or some questions or some comments if anybody wants to hop in here. If you don't feel comfortable talking, there's a chat button down there. Please type your question there or your comment. We'd really like to hear from you.
Sarah, are you and Tracy okay with talking? I can't see you not being okay, Sarah. But I don't know, Tracy.
You talk it for me. Yeah, Tracy's afraid she might start crying.
Okay,
Is
it's
she
That's
asking
okay.
That's
That's
okay.
okay.
for her?
a safe space.
It's a safe
Uh,
space. Yep.
Yeah, she wanted to know what's the average time it takes for someone to get to like the last stage of the grief process, and when someone should be concerned if they're stuck in a stage and reach out to a specialist.
That's a good question, actually.
That's a really good question. I generally say any loss, it takes any change, any traumatic event takes, there's no line in the sand, but it takes your brain around 90 days to incorporate the reality of what has happened. It doesn't mean that you're not going through the stages, but our brains trick us into thinking, are they still here? Did I wake up and forget to feed them? Because our brains takes us, think of your life with your pet as a puzzle and it's fallen to the ground and you have to pick them up. You're reconstructing this puzzle in your mind, and it can take like 90 days. There is no timeline for grief. If it takes you a day or it takes you a year. But what's important is if you find yourself isolating or not connecting with others, that's when you want to worry, whether it's a month or a year. Colleen, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, what I usually say is that the amount that you loved your animal companion is directly related to the amount of grief that you're going to feel. But that is okay.
Yep.
That love that you shared is going to knock you off your feet. But we are all, everybody in attendance has gone through this, and we've all come out the other side. And you can't hurry yourself through it. You just have to let yourself ride that wave. And when you want to cry, you let those tears fall,
Go
because
right ahead.
they are healing tears.
Mhm.
If Dr. Seif taught me one thing only, it was that give people the permission to cry. And if you have to get up and excuse yourself because you're at work, you do that. If you
That's
don't
right.
want to, you don't do it, but you let them out, because that's going to get you closer to resolution. I think sharing your grief with somebody who can validate it is a faster way to get to resolution. So if you have somebody that you can reach out to who is certified, or who is a mental health professional with pet loss experience, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I would say.
No problem. Amy asked, can you please give more information about the chat rooms you were talking about, Colleen?
Yeah. Okay, so the APLB, Association for Pet Loss and Bereavement, has a chat room that has been active since 2002. And we've helped over 70,000 individuals. It can be found at aplb.org. So there, the P is Miss, gotcha. Thank you. aplb.org. It's free. You just have to fill out a form to get
Mhm.
to the chat room. That's it. And it's open
Every day almost.
yes, 6-7 days a
Yes.
week,
Yeah,
yes, at
yes.
different times.
Yep.
And the hosts are, every single one of them are phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Every one of them, they have a different way to speak and to help you through it. And each one is like probably the most compassionate people that I know. So yeah.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have a question? If not, we can get to some of the chats. Jessica, go ahead.
Saying like this is my job. I'm just giving you a hard, I'm just giving you a hard time. Sorry, Trisha.
I love Jessica.
I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I got them in order. So I'm like in my brain, I'm like, don't make me confused. I'm forgetting everything lately. I'm so bad with this stuff. Rebecca said, because this is a good question, and it's funny because it's not funny, but it is funny because I've gotten a new puppy and I recently put my own dog down. And I was telling my new puppy the other day while I was sitting there looking at him on the couch, and I'm like, I love you, but I don't love you as much as the other one. So I'm so horrible, but I keep telling him I will love
Today
you.
I don't, but tomorrow I
No,
might.
I'm like, in a couple months when you're potty trained, I will love you. So I feel you, Rebecca. I really do. But it says, what part of the guilt, what if part of the guilt we are struggling with is that we're grieving harder for one pet than the other when we try to love them equally? And I feel you, Rebecca. I really do, more than you know.
That is such a good question.
Right.
Yeah,
It is.
it is.
I would say be true to yourself. Just because you have experienced, let's say it's a heart dog or a heart cat or whatever animal it is, that is a special and a unique relationship. They're like humans. You can love more than one human being. It's just in different ways. As if it's a puppy, as time goes on, you're going to form a new bond with that other puppy. And I can tell you all about it because I'm into year 2 and 2 years and 8 months. And I wanted to strangle mine at the beginning. She was so naughty compared to my precious girl who jumped out of the womb and was perfect. But
And right,
you love her. Like I
Right.
love her now.
when you grieve and you're grieving differently, let's say you didn't grieve for your cat the way you're grieving for your dog or whatever the pet.
Yeah.
That's okay because our
Okay.
pets come into our lives at different times and they witness different things. Maybe your cat was in your life during the college years and they witnessed you having a great time, and your dog witnessed you transitioning through some really harder things. And you're grieving for that piece, that relationship, because they witnessed something else with you.
Mhm.
Not that you love each less or more, but the relationship was formulated on different witnessing experiences
Could you
and
be
mirroring experiences.
could you be grieving the chapters of your life with the animal practically? And it's not, I mean, it's
Ooh.
not, I'm not saying that the animal is less than the animal or your pet, that pet that you're grieving, that is your heart dog or cat or the new one, even though he's not potty trained. I'm stuck on that really, is less because he's going to have the memories because he doesn't have them yet. But I think sometimes I look back at the one that I just lost. I also am grieving those chapters of my life that I shared with him.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that a
Yeah,
good?
Exactly.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've been hanging out with you a lot. So
Yeah. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
I want to say, I am coming back to you, sir. I think it's Sir Adam. I am going to come back to you because yours is great too. But Samsung SM 926, because you don't have a name, I apologize. I do like your comment, so I want to read that first. It says the APLB chat has helped me so much, and it is that is why I'm here with this meeting tonight. So I just wanted to,
That's great.
Thank you.
yep. So now I'm going back to Adam, Sir Adam. Sorry. One of the best descriptions of grief is that. Whoops, where'd he go? All right, sorry. There you go. One of the best descriptions of grief is that it's like an onion. There are layers, and even years after a loss, a scent, smell, sight, etc., can trigger your grief all over again.
That's right.
It's been low-key crying since the start of your webinar, thinking about two of my pets that have passed away. One was 54 years ago, and the other was 4 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how grieving and loving can happen at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep. And Matt wrote, absolutely. We lost Hugo just in November and over in November. And since I feel like absolute sadness and grief is just hiding behind a thin veil, and all takes is a memory sense song, etc., to turn into sobbing mess. If it makes you feel any better, I
Yeah.
totally understand it. As I went to go get my coffee, and my little Mr. Teddy used to leave me love puddles as I went down to go get my coffee in the morning. And if you weren't careful enough, you got a love puddle you had to step in. And this morning, for some reason, I was like tiptoeing, thinking I was going to step in a love puddle. And then I was like, oh, dude, don't worry about it anymore. But I
Yeah.
get it. It's just, I don't know why. I felt like there was a love puddle down there this morning for me.
Yeah.
It's just, it's awful. So, all right, we got something from Sheila. I'm really reading it really quick, so talks really quick.
Nancy, I love what you said about loving and grieving at the same time.
Mhm.
It's like that word, the Japanese have a word for crisis and opportunity, which is the same.
Mhm.
And I think about pet loss in that way with one word.
Yeah.
And
Because as we grieve, we also love.
yeah,
Grief is an act of love.
yeah,
It is an act of love.
yeah.
Whether we grieve for a day or an hour, I know individuals are like, it was only an hour. I left the vet and adopted another one. And in that hour on the way there, I sobbed.
Yeah.
That grief is as legitimate as someone who says, I've been grieving for 5 years.
Have you ever seen the Nora McKinnery Moving Forward with Your Grief? There's a TED Talk, and when we're training students to become pet loss grief specialists, we have a pretty heavy curriculum, and there's a video that everybody has to watch for talking about the definitions of grief and bereavement. And that TED Talk is so powerful. Every student writes, "Oh, I'm so glad that you included this." So I'm going to give Trisha the name of that TED Talk
Thank you.
because it's phenomenal, and it talks about moving forward in your life with your grief.
Mhm.
And it's just it's very powerful.
Wonderful. Jessica, we want to get to a couple of those other questions before we wrap it up here tonight.
Well, Sheila said the euthanasia vet told me that told me my dog wouldn't know if I had left the room, because I had left the room before my husband and where I left. Ugh, my husband stayed. It took 3 sedatives before the end, and I couldn't help but think she was looking for me, and that's why. So guilt for I've had guilt for the last 5 months because of it. Ouch.
Whoa.
That one hurts. And I feel you, girlfriend. That hurts.
Ah,
And the last one is
We want to
Heather.
think, that we want to feel that the last moment is as important to them as it is important to us.
Mm.
And when you think about that moment, animals turn inward when they're ready to pass. You could take a page out of, look at any National Geographic program on animals in the wild. When they're feeling their last moment, because they feel it rather than know it, they go off and turn inward. If you can be there, I hope it brings you peace. If you cannot be there, you're still giving yourself peace because you know that you can't. But in my experience, and when I've talked to other vets, the vets say the same. They will not know at that level when they're ready to transition. They won't know whether you're there. But if it's important for
wow.
you, be there. But if you're honoring yourself and knowing I can't be there, that's honoring the relationship because you are here to move forward.
Heather wrote,
Jessica.
I found myself saying did I do something wrong and I didn't deserve to have my dog Vicky for longer than 6.5 years. I try not to think this way, but sometimes I catch myself doing this on a daily basis. Where would you classify this in the stage of grief?
sorry, I missed the first part of that, Jessica. Sorry, what was the?
I find myself saying did I do something wrong and I didn't deserve to have my dog Vicky longer than 6.5 years. I try not to think this way, but sometimes I catch myself doing this on a daily basis. Where would I fall in the stages of grief?
I think that's a part of the guilt and of just
Bargaining.
yeah, and kind of being stuck there and possibly looking at reframing that. You had 6.5 years with, was it Vicky? I think it was Vicky.
This
look-
one was Heather.
Heather.
Yeah, the dog's name was Vicky.
The
Sorry.
dog, yeah. So you had 6.5 years with Heather. Think back to all of the love that you gave her from day one.
And that would be 2,375.
Oh my gosh.
I
Like
do
that-
an activity called Mosaic Memory. And I ask people to identify the number of years or months they were with their pet. multiply it by 365, and that's your love account. She had 2,372 days
Oh my God.
of love.
Oh, when you put it in those terms,
Yeah.
that's simply incredible.
Yeah.
Is there, Colleen or Nancy, as we close our night tonight, is there anything that you would like to leave with us?
Self-compassion and resiliency. Resiliency is your natural human trait to recover and grow. And self-compassion is the agent that will help you grow around your grief. No shooting on yourself.
Yeah.
Self-compassion. What I did my best. It was an accident. I would not have chosen to do this. I gave what I could. My neighbor could give more. I gave what I could. That is self-compassion. And know that you are designed for resiliency.
Oh, Nancy. Colleen,
I think- Yeah, I think the two things that I would like to leave you with is that you don't have to suffer alone. There are people and organizations that can help you process your grief and get to resolution. And just to remember that the word euthanasia is actually made up of two Greek words, eu and thanatos. Eu is good, thanatos is death. You are providing a good death for your animal when you euthanize them. It's the best gift that you can give them.
It honors the part of the contract. You speak for them in the end.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a covenant that you share.
Yep.
That's
Oh, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for honoring the love of their pets and being with us. I want to thank Colleen and Nancy and Jessica for being with us, for taking the time to be with us tonight. And Colleen and Nancy, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise and your guidance and your love for all of us. We will be hosting another webinar in October on the third in our pet loss series. In November, we will be hosting a webinar on pet cancer. Again, we are going to be providing to you all the link for this webinar, as well as resources that you can have on hand. And we're going to be providing you with the contact details for Colleen and Nancy as well. There are I want to recognize a couple of other people tonight. One is Jacqueline Lemieux Lecor, who wrote a beautiful book called Remember Me as Sunshine. And we're going to have that when we send this information to you as well. And I would recommend it's remembermeassunshine.com. And it's a beautiful book wrote in memoriam of her dog that passed in a very tragic way. We're also going to be having information on some of the beautiful memoriams from ATLB and the Rainbow. I think it's a Rainbow Bridge, those cards. And thank you all for being here. Thank you. It's an honor. Every time we do this, I am at a loss for words, which you don't find me often at a loss for words. And I am humbled to be in your presence tonight and honored to be with each and every one of you. I want to wish you a blessed evening. You can find us at moosesmarch.com. Petsorfamily.net is our podcast. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, the email is Tricia@moosesmarch.com. So thank you again. Thanks everyone for being
Thank
here.
you. This is wonderful. It's an honor.
It was fabulous. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks, Tricia and Jessica.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Nancy.
Bye.